If you're new to fantasy football and just want to get better at it, then this is the video for you. I'm Tom Strachan and I've written hundreds of fantasy football strategy articles for Fantasy Pros and other top sites. I've won thousands of dollars playing fantasy football, and in this video, I'm going to give you 6 really important pieces of advice to help you gain an edge and start seeing better results. Number 1, know your league settings. Scoring systems, PPR, half PPR, standard, and roster size, they change player values a lot. PPR means points per reception. That's generally becoming the default for most leagues now. You gain a full point for each reception as well as the relevant score for yardage gained on that play, while half PPR gives us 0.5 points per reception. In standard leagues, which used to be the most common, there are no rewards for pass catches apart from the yardage that they gain. The difference, it might not sound like a lot, but it does make a huge difference. Jahmyr Gibbs was the RB2 in PPR points per game last year with 21.3. In standard leagues, though, he only scored 18.3, losing points for all the receptions that he got. Meanwhile, the wide receiver 3 in PPR was Puka Nacua, who had 18.8 points, but in standard leagues, he only scored 11.6 points. It's a massive change. PPR, it rewards pass catchers and particularly those who are catching a high volume of them. Guys like Wan'Dale Robinson get a massive boost in that format compared to half PPR and standard. Robinson finished as the wide receiver 47 in full PPR points per game, 10 spots higher than on half PPR. Likewise, Garrett Wilson also finished 4 spots higher in full PPR compared to half PPR. Always remember to check how many players you start at each position before drafting. If your league wants you to start 2 running backs and 3 wide receivers, then good depth at wide receiver is going to be even more important. If you're playing in a super flex league with the ability to start 2 quarterbacks, then again, they're going to be more important and will be drafted sooner than in normal leagues. I talked more about that in this Superflex strategy video that is linked in the description below. It's also worth looking at what players you can start in the flex. This is a position you can play a mixture of players in, typically wide receivers or running backs, sometimes tight ends. It's important to know who you can start there, as if you start 2 running backs and a flex, you could potentially be starting 3 running backs each week, and that might influence how you choose to draft the position. Number 2. Prioritize running backs and wide receivers earlier. We'll talk about quarterbacks more in a minute, but first let's look at the skill position players that we do want early. At the running back position, we want guys who see a high volume of touches, have pass catching ability, and will score a large amount of their team's touchdowns. Those 3 factors have proven again and again to turn players into league winners. If you're playing in full PPR, then you want volume merchant wide receivers because they gain points at such a high rate, it's hard to keep up with them. Meanwhile, if you're in standard leagues, prioritize a running back here instead, but don't ignore wide receivers like Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, and CeeDee Lamb, who are proven touchdown scorers. In the first 3 to 4 rounds, just focus on building a strong running back wide receiver core ideally. Remember, we want to not only have our strong starting positions on our roster, but also have strong options for the flex position. We need to be strong across the board or we'll lose games by small margins. Keep watching because later on there's a cheat code for the quarterback position and we're going to get into that in a moment. But first, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. We do year-round fantasy football content. Whatever type of fantasy football you play, we've got strategy for it, we've got advice, and we're always here to take your questions. Number 3, wait on quarterback. Unless you're in a 2QB or Superflex league, but don't feel like you've got to grab a quarterback early. Quarterbacks are always going to look appealing on paper, but we don't need to get too eager as, like last year, for instance, the top 26 quarterbacks all scored over 15 points per game on average. Meanwhile, in half PPR, only 10 running backs hit that mark, 5 wide receivers, and not a single tight end. So it's much easier to find a high floor comparatively at quarterback compared to other positions. Typically in redraft, I want high-end running backs and wide receivers who get close to quarterback scoring because they're the difference makers against the rest of the chumps at the position who don't come close to 15 points per game. The top 7 quarterbacks were separated by 5.4 points per game in 2024, with Lamar Jackson at 25.7 and Jared Goff at 20.3. Then the distance between Sam Darnold at QB8 and CJ Stroud at QB 27, that was almost exactly the same at 5.1. So as you get past the elite options at the top, the gap closes between the rest of the pack, so we don't need to chase the position for the sake of it. The path to top-end production at the quarterback position is either throw for 240 yards per game on average and 2.2 touchdowns, or, and this is the game changer, rush for an average of 35 yards per game. There's an absolute history of data that shows those are the guys in either of those categories that are going to get to the top 12 quarterbacks, the top 5 quarterbacks more often. As dual threat quarterbacks have become more common in the NFL, guys like Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, Jalen Hurts, they've separated to give us a new tier of elite quarterback fantasy scoring. But while they will cost you a pick in the top 4 rounds, there's a couple of cheaper options who are worth considering. Justin Fields, QB 10 currently. I recently talked with Matthew Berry from NBC about this, and it's so obvious when you drill into it. Fields averages 50.2 rushing yards per game across his career, and that is a huge boost to his fantasy football floor. In 2022, he completed just 12.8 passes per game for the Bears, but he was still the quarterback 5 in fantasy points per game. Rushing points are incredibly valuable, and we have to remember that. Secondly, Drake May, who averaged 35 rushing yards per game last year, and he has plenty of upgrades around him this offseason. Number 4, pay attention to bye weeks and depth. Don't panic if a couple of your starters share the same bye week. You can stream replacements. Your league's going to have waivers or free agency every week. The team you draft will look very different to the one you finish the season with. We can churn things over, replace the disappointing players with others, and cope with bye weeks, etc. Do prioritize having depth at running back, wide receiver, since injuries there are very common. Like a strong bench can win you weeks. I'd rather be deep at wide receiver and running back than quarterback because of the replaceability of their scoring, like we talked about before. I don't mind rostering 2 tight ends if I have to, but try and find a solution there so you can prioritize the other positions. Number 5, stay active during the season. Winning your draft doesn't win your league. Those grades that you get at the end of a draft, just throw them out. It's nonsense because you could have the best team coming out of a draft, but what matters is working the waiver wire, making trades, and making the right start and sit decisions. Don't be afraid to get aggressive with waiver claims. We'll have weekly videos on the channel here to help you with players you should be targeting. Remember, it's okay to spend a lot of money early. We want to make sure we secure a player who could be a difference maker and have them for as many matches as possible. Of course, some years that's going to result in disappointments. Isaiah Likely last year looked like a league winner in week 1 and then was barely fantasy relevant for quite a while. In 2023, though, guys like Puka Nacua and Kyron Williams were worth spending your entire budget straight out the door. Keep an eye on injuries, breakout players, favorable matchups. Our Discord is great for this. You can join by hitting the join button down below for like $1 a month. And then we have a really active community who are always on hand to help, as well as myself, Rich, and Tyler, who are making sure you're up to date on injuries, rankings changes, and much, much more. Stream your defenses and even quarterbacks week to better can be better than just sticking with one. Like sometimes it's easy to just get take lock and be stuck with the guy that you drafted and feel like you need to start them. But honestly, if you don't have the top options, get comfortable with the fact that there might be better options on the waivers, and that's where projections and weekly rankings come into play. 2 final bonus points. Don't draft a kicker or defense too early. You are not trying to fill out your starting roster in the draft. You try to build 15 of the best picks or however many picks are in your draft, and it doesn't need to be your starting lineup first. Take your defense and kicker as late as possible. And then the last one. Generally, I want to have 3 to 4 wide receivers by round 7 to 8 or so at the latest. It's much easier to find running backs on waivers than wide receivers. So that is my guide to playing fantasy football. If you've got questions, drop them down below. You can go and check out this video with Matthew Berry where he talked about some players that he feels ADP is all wrong on heading into the 2025 season.